Harry and Meghan, the fear was that they were trying to get in and around the royal family upon the Queen's death because they were in the process of filming a documentary for Netflix. Guess what's just been delayed? The documentary for Netflix. Does this mean that they are not being as exciting as originally hoped?
Look, there's a lot of things at play here. You've got the new season of The Crown, which in the UK at least starts on the 9th of November. There's lots of criticism about that because it involves that time in the 1990s when we can all remind ourselves the royals weren't very popular at all. Then, of course, we've had the very recent death of Queen Elizabeth II, and therefore, is it appropriate that we should have this Netflix series involving Harry and Meghan starting in December? And then you've got the book, Harry's book. Now, you know, even before the Queen died, there was this sort of tussle between Netflix on the one hand and HarperCollins, the publisher of Harry's book, on the other hand, who gets, you know, first dib on the exclusives. So that was already going on in any case. There's a lot of things at play here. I wouldn't be surprised if the documentary series still does come out in December, but I think there's a lot of chat going on behind the scenes.
Also, you'd imagine that these things, in terms of infamy, they feed each other. The assumption being that there'll be a bunch of people who will probably not read the book but watch the TV show, and maybe the other way around. But of the people that you've heard that might be anywhere near the production, are people setting their expectations too high or maybe even too low about what they might be able to say or do?
Well, look, you know, as I heard it initially, when Harry was writing his book, he put absolutely everything down there, warts and all, and then was going back and people were saying, well, actually, you can't really say that, and actually, the Queen's still alive, you can't really say that. And they were like extracting things. And it's still entirely possible that they can still be doing that extracting right now, given the, you know, the news that we've had recently. You were in London, Fred, of course, the funeral of Queen Elizabeth II and the accession to the throne of King Charles. So, you know, there's still a lot of work going on. However, you know, as you rightly say, they feed off each other. You've got Netflix on the one hand, you know, what will they reveal that we didn't know about Harry and Meghan's departure from the royal family? And I kind of think to myself, hold on a minute, didn't you tell all this to Oprah Winfrey 18 months ago? We had all those accusations of racism and being financially cut off and all the rest of it. So what more is there to tell? Well, you know, we haven't got long to wait to find out.
But also there's this sort of world of unofficial fact checkers that turn around, and unless you get the exact minute, the exact moment, the exact interaction perfect, then it feeds into the overall narrative that they just make stuff up. And why wouldn't they when there's a serious financial incentive for them to bring the sizzle, not the steak?
Well, Netflix want their money. I mean, Netflix have paid a lot of money for Harry and Meghan's docuseries. Some people have called it, you know, the equivalent of the Kardashians. Who knows what it's going to be like? Is it Harry and Meghan promoting their charity, or is it life behind the scenes in their Montecito home, watching them cook dinner in the evening? I mean, we don't actually know what's in this series yet. Netflix are really tight-lipped about it. I spoke to them this morning. You know, they say they're not rattled by all this criticism of The Crown and nothing's changing. But, you know, Netflix would say that. They've paid a lot of money, Netflix, and they want their pound of flesh.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, one of the really beautiful things that, we did see a few weeks ago in London was the connection that people had via that moment of Paddington Bear and the Queen at the Jubilee this year, and then a whole generation of people whose connection to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II was through Paddington Bear. So literally kid after kid after kid went to Green Park just next to the palace, and they left a tribute for the Queen that included a physical Paddington teddy bear. It was beautiful to see, and now we're finding out where all those teddies are going to end up.
Yeah, I don't know whether you saw for yourself, because you were broadcasting from right next to Green Park, weren't you, when you were in London for the funeral? And and amongst all the flowers and all the cards and all the tributes were a bunch of bears, teddy bears, Paddington bears, and all relating back to that very sweet moment. I mean, if you didn't know about Paddington Bear before the Jubilee, and then you saw that little sketch between the Queen and Paddington showing she's still got a sense of humour at age of 96, and the conversation they had about the marmalade sandwich, all of those bears that were left for the Queen, be that in London or also outside Windsor Castle as well, have all been scooped up and cleaned, and they're going to be donated to a charity called Bernardo's. I think you've got a similar charity charity in Australia, and given to children who will I'm sure will appreciate them. And there was a picture released of the Queen Consort, who's the new patron of Barnardo's. In fact, she took the patronage of Barnardo's from the late Queen, and she's sat there surrounded by these Paddington bears. It's really sweet. And of course, there's another story about the marmalade sandwiches. Some of those were left at the Flowers site, and some of them had that little message which the Queen said in the Jubilee sketch. It just says, "For later."
I always love, there's also my favourite of all of those tributes that were in Queen Park when we were walking around having a look. There was an image of Big Ben, and then the Queen was holding on to Big Ben as if she was King Kong, but they called her Queen Kong. I don't know why anyone thought that was the way to pay tribute to her, but there were so many little beautiful moments like that. And again, you can be both respectful and reverential, but also I want to talk about this side of things, which is good to hear that the connection is back through Barnardo's, because clearly one thing that the royal family is phenomenally good at is institutional PR. The capacity to say this person will be associated with that, this will be laid out here and laid out there, and very obviously we're on the path from Queen Consort to the coronation, when she'll just be known as the Queen going forward because she'll be crowned. Again, beautiful little moment to take something totally positive and continually associated with one person who, frankly, if there's anyone who still has negative feelings about Camilla, you need to well and truly get over it.
Do you know, I mean, there was a story around a little while ago that some newspapers might start calling her the Queen rather than the Queen Consort. Now, I mean, that's technically what her title is. She is legally the Queen, and she was always going to be, even before the late Queen Elizabeth announced earlier in this year that she'd like Camilla to be known as the Queen Consort. I think we'll keep that name for a little while, because I think if I said the Queen to you right now, we'd all think of the late Queen Elizabeth II, of course. So I don't think she becomes Queen at the moment of her coronation, but I think it's all about people getting used to the fact that we now have a king, and the king's wife is the Queen, just as it was for George VI and Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother. So I think it takes people a little time to get used to those things. And I think she's quite happy at the moment with the title Queen Consort. But of course, as time moves on, we will start just referring to them as the King and Queen. But, you know, every single time Kate and William do a visit, maybe they go to, for example, I was at a maternity unit with Kate recently at a hospital. And I could, even before I turned up at the hospital, I thought, how long before I start seeing stories about, oh, Kate sees a baby, Kate's therefore broody, Kate's going to have a fourth? You know, it's entirely possible. Of course, she might have a fourth. Although, you know, let's remember, William and Kate are in their 40s now. I think they're done with three. That's my personal prediction, although it's entirely up to them. It's a private matter. If they want to have a fourth, I'm sure they will. But you know what? There's a slight serious point to this, and Harry's mentioned it before, and now William's campaigning more and more on environmental matters. A lot of people say that actually, in the interest of the planet, you shouldn't be having 4 children. I'm sure William might open himself up to some criticism from that sort of green lobby if he were to have a fourth. But you know what? That's their choice. It's that they're a couple and they can choose when and if to have child number 4.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate it, mate. I always know you will always answer whatever question we throw your way, but I can feel that would inevitably be a frustrating one, because who could ever possibly know? But thank you for giving us the insight into so much, and we look forward to talking very soon.